Hello and welcome to another episode of Function Better. In this episode, Safiya and Jonce continue the discussion about how best to implement beneficial changes in our lives by discussing systems and goals. Is goal setting the way to go, or should we focus more on the how or what we do to reach those goals? Jonce and Safiya discuss examples from the world of athletics, team sports and of course Taekwondo, and how we can start to put systems in place to help us achieve the things we want to.
So we have mentioned in the past about goals versus systems, and I think it's quite important now that we go into more in depth about it because it's a very important differentiation to do, I think. So off you go, Jonce, Hamza, tell us more about it.
Okay, so from the beginning, let's just tell you what the definitions of goals and systems are. Goals are the results that you want to achieve, whereas systems is the processes that leads you to those results, to those goals. So this idea of goals versus system is really coming from Scott Adams, who is the creator of the Dilbert cartoons. And if you wanted to find out more about this, you can go and look up his book, which is called How to Fail at Almost Everything But Still Win Big. And James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, really takes this concept, this idea a bit further and expands on it. Okay, so there's two books you can go and catch up and to read about it. So if you want to get to your goals, you need to have a system in place. Now, I'm not saying that goals are not important, because they absolutely are. But you don't want to spend your time focusing on the goals. You want to focus on systems. Okay, as I've already mentioned. So let me put it to you now, Safiya, because just when it comes to goals, okay, and we know how important it is, and when you did your Pilates instructor course, I want to bring you back to that, okay? Was there a section where they talked about goals? And I'm going to give you another. I'm going to give you another little hint about that, right? Did they mention something called SMART goals?
Yes. Yeah, I just why I was a bit of a blank because you always love to put me like this on the spot, but it's good because it gets me thinking, and people watching probably actually are thinking right now in the same way. And I was thinking in terms of like when we learn the movements or what we try to achieve when we go through the different stages, but actually you're right. Yes, there's a whole section about goals. What does your participant, your client, want to achieve when they come to Pilates? And also you can help them maybe have healthier eating habits or healthier lifestyle habits, etc. And they always talk about, yes, the SMART goal, the SMART goal, which is,
Yeah, go on then. Tell us what it is then. Do you remember?
No, I can't remember. This T is time, R is reasonable, what is it? A is achievable. I'm going backwards. M is, I can't remember what N and S are.
Okay, so you went from back to front. Let's go from beginning to the end, okay? So S is specific.
That's right.
Right? Now the M could mean two things. It could be, is it the M or M is measurable.
Yeah.
It means one thing. So specific, measurable, but the A can mean two things. So you can have achievable, so they have to be achievable goals, or they can be attainable. Then you move on to the R. The R again could mean two things. Is it realistic? Yeah, realistic. Realistic. What else can it mean? Relevant. Okay, and then the last one is time specific. Now, when I did my Pilates course, that was also a section about goals, and it has to be SMART goals. When I did nutrition, again, it was SMART goals. When I did my personal training way back in the day, again, SMART goals. You expect it in a lot of these courses that you go to, and to me, it's like filler. And if I do a new course and it comes up with this, I'm almost kind of like, oh, here we go again, inside my head, All right. But they do, it is a big thing and it is important, but after a while, you kind of like, you become kind of immune to it. All right. But Scott Adams, he's really blunt, right? And he says that goals are for losers. Okay.
Wow, that's an amazing statement because this we're so it's so ingrained in us, isn't it, to think about your goal constantly.
Yeah. And if you think about it as well, is he gives the example of if you wanted to lose weight, all right, and let's say, I don't know, you have a target. I'm going to say 10 pounds, but you might have a bigger target. You want to lose weight, okay? Now, a lot of people during that process of chasing after that goal, they're in a continuous um, um cycle of failing or feeling a failure, especially if one day goes where they might sort of like miss, and they start eating rubbish or something, and you continually, you feel like a failure um, all the way through. And there's a lot of pressure on you as well to achieve it. I mean, we spoke about this going back at the beginning of the year when we mentioned about New Year's resolutions. Remember when we talked about that?
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Okay.
This is a big pressure for people, generally speaking.
And remember how we talked about how people they don't keep it up too much. They set these amazing goals, and then how long does it last? All right. So, but then what happens when you reach your goal? If you have a goal set for to lose 10 pounds, and you reach that goal, then it's all joyous, it's all celebrations. You've reached your goal, but what next? But when it comes to systems, it is ongoing. There is not a point where you've reached. It's a continuous process. Okay, and it's basically, you could say, it's like becomes like a daily thing. It doesn't have to be daily, but it can be something that you're doing on a daily basis. Now, in the system that I follow, I like to try to do things on a daily basis. I have little things that I do on a daily basis, and it's so it's not linear either. It's just, it can be all over the place, and I can do one little thing today and another little thing tomorrow, but it's all part of the system, and I'm feeling successful all the time.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, I can see. Yeah, yeah, I can totally understand what. So when you said about systems, it's not something we talk a lot about in details here in this particular series we do together, but the other series with our nutritionist Angela Sumas, we talk about weight loss. And there's always this idea about having a goal of the actual weight on the scale, or are you making lifestyle changes that you can carry through for life because they are healthy for you in all sorts of ways, not just about having a number on a scale. So is
Yeah,
that something that basically, is that how you see the difference between goals and system is something that you can maybe implement on the longer term, and it has ramifications in your life, not just that particular uh, 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 path that you were thinking of.
I think that's a fantastic example, actually. Weight loss. If that is your goal, and you should have a goal. We said that is it important to have a goal, and you can use the SMART acronym.
Hmm.
This is a very good thing. But what you don't want to do is just to focus on those scales. You want to focus, like you said, on those lifestyle thing, which is what you do on a it's a long time. It's a lifetime thing, basically. It's a lifestyle. You do it on a regular basis. You do not just want to focus on those scales. And as we know, when it comes to weight loss, the scales always lie anyway. Right? So don't waste your time on the scale. But let me give you a couple of other examples coming from the sporting world. All right. Now, I recently watched a full video of the whole race of Sir Roger Bannister when he ran the sub 4 minute mile, and that was done in Oxford, right?
Yes, I was going to say, am I surprised that you're taking Sir Roger Bannister as an example in Oxford? because as everybody knows, should know by now, that Jonce Hamza lives in Oxford and he absolutely raves about Oxford. But you don't support the Oxford Football Club, do you?
Yeah, they're my hometown, and when I must admit, when I was growing up, when I was going to say middle school, which is actually going to show my age, but when I was in middle school, every Saturday on a home game, me and my friends, we used to walk. It used to take us about 20 minutes to walk up to the ground, and we would go and watch Oxford United, and that's going back. I'm not even going through the managers and the players, which I can still remember. And that was so regularly always going to watch Oxford United. So I could say that I'm an Oxford United supporter. Okay. But I'm going to come back to what my team is. I'm going to give you another example later on and go into my team. But so Roger Bannister, he ran the first sub 4 minute mile, as we said in Oxford, at the Oxford University racing track. And do you know what? I've actually ran on that same track, and I have to say that I've ran at the same pace for sub 4 minute mile. I only lasted about 10 seconds, but I can say that I've done it. Okay,
I am
but
very impressed, I have to say.
but if you look at his example, right? Okay, on another video I was watching about him, he said that in 1952 at the Helsinki Olympics, he was disappointed that he finished fourth in that race. Okay, and he wanted to get the gold medal. Okay, but he said that because he was disappointed and he never achieved that goal because he was planning to retire after that. He wanted to continue because he wanted the world or the athletics world or whoever to actually know about his training methods. He didn't mention the word systems, but we could say that was his systems, his training methods. And so he had a focus for can't remember what name of the game. Some game was happening in 1954. Okay, so I read about him, and he was studying his at St. He worked at St Mary's Hospital in London, and he did his studies, and he took a train on the afternoon to go up to Oxford to meet a couple of his friends that he trained with. They had lunch, and then they went down to the track, and then they went to do this race, and they were representing the all comers um, runners running against Oxford University, even though he's an Oxford man himself, right? Okay. Um, and and they ran the race, and it wasn't really their goal wasn't really for going after the world record. I don't think, but maybe it was. But the conditions wasn't the right conditions. Okay, and he was saying how they had the setup where they could see the timings of each lap, and the first lap was like 58 seconds, which was bang on, and then they had the next lap, which was 1 minute 58 seconds. Again, that was bang on. And then the third lap, it was like 3 minutes and 1 second. So that wasn't right. That was like they were slowing down. So then he had to really pick up the pace um, to in the last lap. And he's known for having a really fantastic kick and an end sprint. And he managed to run the race in 3 minutes 59.4 seconds. Okay, and he
Yeah, I remember it was, I mean, I not remember from seeing it, but I remember reading that it was really, really just down from 4 minutes. It
yeah.
was very close. Mhm.
And what's important here is his goal, right? His goal was to break the sub 4 minute mile to run it in under 4 minutes. But that he had to implement a system, and he talked about his methods. So we talked about the 1952 Helsinki Olympics, and so you could say basically he was training and using a system to reach that goal, which finally came in 1954. And you know what? He was actually a neurologist, and you imagine, if he was alive today, because he died in, I think, in was it 2018? He died not so long ago. He passed away. And if he was alive and a bit younger and working there, he'll be all over the news with all of the pandemic and all the rest of it, because we see so many of these neurologists. Okay, but in December of that year, he astonishingly he made an announcement that like shook the world, that he was retiring at the age of 25. At the peak of his career, he said that he's now going to work in the hospital, and he has to do hospital appointments, and he won't have the time to do his training, and therefore he won't be able to compete at that high standard. So he retired. All right.
That's quite amazing. I find him very inspiring in other ways. If some of you have seen my very short video on a private video I did, sort of separate video I did on slowing down, I did some reading about slowing down the pace of running, pace of life generally. But there was one thing about that I read about Bannister was how he prepared for that record. So yes, I think that day of the record, it was set as a day where he was supposed to run for the record. So he knew, but he went, as he said, completely nonchalantly, very relaxed. But for 6 weeks, 6 weeks prior, he actually did not run at all. All he did, he spent 4 weeks, I think, in East Africa, in the highlands, Ethiopia, I think, or Kenya, where we have a lot of excellent runners, coming from those places. And he just walked. He hiked, he walked, he trained his lungs, increased his lung capacity. He trained his body, generally speaking, and then he came home, and then he did some weightlifting. Or I don't know, the numbers are kind of vague, but I think it was about a week, something like that. He did just weightlifting, kept his body in good shape, ate well, and slept a lot, rested. And everybody thought it was crazy. Everybody else was running, running. And he said, I do not need to teach my body to run. My body knows how to run. I just need to keep it in good shape. And a day or two before, he completely stopped everything, just slept. And as you say, yeah, he went, didn't know about the going out with the friends and stuff, which is very chilled, like any other day. So even mentally, he was really chilled. He had kind of moved aside the goal, because as you say, if you focus so much on it, you kind of get so obsessed by it that you forget how to get there. You just push and do things that are not supposed to be done, because all you want is the goal. You forget about, I think this is why we can say you forget about the system to get there. And this is why he arrived so relaxed. His body was super rested, and he just went for it.
Wow, wow,
Yeah,
what some information he just dropped on us there. Wow, and
yeah,
so we could say that he was so confident in his system that there could be lots of goals achieved out of that system, and who knows what he would have gone on to do if he hadn't retired, using that system, because a lot of athletes, they continue, don't they? Okay, let me give you another quick example, if I can make this one quick now. Okay, coming back to something that you may, or people may or may not know, that I love my football. Okay, I never wanted to do anything apart from become a professional footballer, believe it or not. Okay, it was my passion, but sadly enough, I didn't make it for whatever reasons. I didn't make it. But I want to tell you about Liverpool Football Club. Okay, now
I'm sorry. I am from West Manchester, not far from Manchester United ground. You want to talk about Liverpool? Are you sure? You feel very safe over there, down on the other side of the screen.
do you know what? I forgot about that. Because there's a rivalry, isn't it? And the Manchester fans has been having a go at the Liverpool supporters, right? Okay, for like 30 years. Every year they used to hold a number up, 20 years, 21, 25 years, since they hadn't won the Premier League. When the Premier League first started, I think it was 1992. Since that time, Liverpool have never won the Premier League. And there's always been a great rivalry between Liverpool and Manchester. Okay, they just don't get on. But in the season of 2019 and 2020, which was disrupted with the coronavirus thing, Liverpool actually won the Premier League for the first time, and it was their first title in 30 years. All right. And if you go on Google Liverpool Football Club, you will see that they're champions, Premier League champions, 2019, 2020. But what you won't read about is the fact that the system that they followed. You won't hear about the fact that, well, you probably, if you dig in, they'll talk about Jurgen Klopp, who came to be their manager, I think it was in 2015, and how from that time they've been training and every season they were getting closer and closer and closer. If it wasn't for Manchester City having an amazing season the prior season, and obviously season before that, they would have won it beforehand, which again is another club, all right, that you might not want to hear, right? Manchester City, right? I noticed you got your red colours on, right? And I've got my red top on, but cover on, right? Okay. And but yeah, you had all the managers before Jurgen Klopp, and Liverpool finally did it. Whereas my team, which is Tottenham Hotspur, right, we've been waiting since 1961 to
Oh, there
win
you
our
go.
next title. That means that throughout my lifetime, I haven't seen them win the well, forget about the Premier League, the national title in all that time. So
Well,
that's
you,
my
you just,
suffering.
yeah, exactly. You're self-inflicted pain.
Oh, God. But yeah, so David, that is in a nutshell, that is goals versus system. Okay, goals are important, but we should follow systems. I don't know if you want to give us another example or anything.
I think, yeah, what I notice, generally speaking, I mean, if it's, for instance, in Taekwondo, there are times where our instructor just says, just enjoy yourself. Even when you go into a competition, his last words are always, just go and enjoy yourself. Yes, yes, even, in the back of your head, you go on the mat because you've worked at it, you've prepared, you want to win, you want that goal, you want that trophy. But also, I always go back to the idea that even if I don't win, because you can't control who your competitors are, and especially even more so when it's a technical competition, you're on your own in your mat, but you've prepared so much, you worked, so your goal is, yes, to win, but also much, much, much more broadly is like, am I satisfied with the performance I have made, and does it reflect my progress over the last whatever 6 months? Because generally we have competition, say, every 6 months, like a big one, or the one that we organize maybe every few months when we travel. So, like, am I progressing? It's kind of a way of checking where you find yourself in your general progression. So basically, you're never really disappointed, because if you worked hard, you will see progress. Then it might be a better competitor than yours. It might be a bad day for you because of various reasons, but you know that all in all, you are setting, your pace. You are going one step at a time to go up to just your general mastery of what you're doing. And I've noticed as well, even in competitive sport, team sports, football, it's really how you even at the very, very high level, actually, something I heard recently. I can't remember which team it was, because I watched news in French as well. Could have been a French team, but they were talking about how they felt during the lockdown and having to play uh, with no audience. So the stadiums are completely empty. They sometimes have like the fake images, and they have like the fans recordings cheering and loud. It's not always timed properly. Apparently, it's like a bit awkward. But they said actually it feels, although the space is very big, it feels a little bit like when they were kids playing in their own little clubs. And that one said it actually it's actually exciting. We kind of re-enjoy our game, our playing, our football the way we used to when we were kids. More pressure, because obviously it's important. They're very important matches. They're professionals. They've got to prove that they're earning their upkeep. But there was that element. So yeah, I think it's tied in with enjoyment. Once you stop enjoying what you're doing, I think it's probably because, to me, my experience, it's because you're focusing so much on the goals that you forgot about the process to get there, and how much you enjoy just the process of learning and progressing.
Fantastic. And we must point out, because you mentioned about France there, that in terms of the rugby, they are actually, they've always had the players, and they've got the league and all the rest of it. But they talk about the French, and they have that kind of like, what is it? They have like an infighting or whatever. I don't know what it is. There's something about the French, right? But at the moment, that their system, what they're doing, their rugby. I mean, they're looking at really being like the favourites, one of the favourites for the next World Cup. But we
I
have to
think
point
tradition,
out
yeah.
that their defensive coach is Sean Edwards. We do have to mention that.
This is when you
I
know
mean,
he,
he did his job. He worked with the Wales team under Mike Gatlin, and now he's gone over and he's doing a fantastic job at France. And I love watching the French rugby team. Honestly, they're like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I watched because my brother watches rugby, and we have a friend here, Ismail, and from Wales, very very patriotic. And I watched a game where the French team, I don't know if it was Clermont, I watched some team, and I called him up. I said, I saw this team playing. I don't know if they was playing a Welsh team or an Irish team. I said, they're like monsters, man. You know what I mean? They just like rip through the team, man. It's like, and yeah, there's like something else, man, something else. But yeah,
The French are very good at certain team sports that are much less spoken about. But in France, they're huge, and it's handball. Actually, it should be handball because it's a German game originally. They're the top ones. They can't continually win the world championship, or they're like in the finals, or at least the semi-finals every year. They're one of the best teams in handball and handball in handball and volleyball as well. Basketball as well, not too bad. And Eastern Feed, there's another one. You can follow. Everybody talk about Magic Johnson, but there's a top French player called Tony Parker. Still an American name because his dad's American. He was born and raised in France, and played in France for years for the French team, and then he went to play for San Antonio in America. And there's a story on him on Netflix at the moment. I think it's Netflix, Amazon, one of those, and just so inspiring because you can see again systems in play, absolutely from top to finish. So what to go back now to, because we love to digress on football. and again, and people are like, oh, maybe some of them are like, yes, have more football please. So what would you be like, what would be a recommendation for someone who has decided? It could be anything for school, could be for work, could be weight loss, could be exercise, feeling fitter, the famous, couch to 5K, etc. That actually is a good. I kind of not entirely sure yet. My jury's still out about my thoughts about couch to 5K, but it looks like it's really going gradually, and they do take people gradually uh, to jogging. My advice would be forget about the 5K. Forget about, I think it's 5K in 30 minutes. I said, my advice would be, if you've never ever done any sport, if you're really unfit, if you're a bit overweight, do not think about 5K in 30 minutes. Think of either being able to jog comfortably without injury and even jog slowly for 30 minutes, or do the 5K, but jog as long and as slow as you want. But do not do both at the same time. Do that only when you're happy with your weight, you don't have any injuries, and you don't have any pain. Like you're fitter, so, and stronger in your legs. So, but there's a bit of a system. So, what would you advise, that generally speaking, when we have goals all the time thrown at us? What would, just to conclude now, about the systems versus goals?
Okay, so you asked a great question, saying what would I recommend for people going forward now and how to maybe implement this into their life. Um, I think if you look back at some of the things that we're talking about, we've talked about so far. Remember, we talked about we talked about excuse me. We talked about when we talked about what's the stuff we talked about with Ray Cook. We talked about joints, yeah, joint by joint. All of these things like joint by joint. Um, we can use these things. But getting back to what you said about the marathon, if I remember if you want to do the London Marathon, they actually have a system in place where they send you out a whole program on how you go about training for that. Okay, what I would do, coming from my point of view, from the movement rehab standpoint, is that we talked about you need to be a human first before you become an athlete. So human first, athlete second. So we talk about just like a child, you want to walk before you run, like you said, you want to go slow before you can go fast. You want to start with your system. This is where all your assessment comes in, where your goal is going to be to run the marathon, but you want to build into a system where you're going to look at you start from an assessment. You start from doing movements. You look at your joints. You look at how you move. You pay attention to that. You do things on a daily basis. You have small little, you can call it small mini goals if you want, okay, but it's not so much. It's more like you just have the system. You just follow the system, and it's not linear. There's so much variables in it. You follow these things, and really, what I think we should actually do now is to really explain this. Why don't we do a series? Because when we go through these joints, where I can take and show our viewers how we can go through these joints, where we can do a little bit of assessment, and we can really break it down joint by joint into a series, and how you can take this and to incorporate it into any movement stuff that you're going to. And I think this is a great question you ask, and I think this is a good solution, that how we can take this forward now, and we can start bringing this, start getting where I'll get on the mat and I'll start showing some movement stuff, that's some really practical stuff that people will be able to use.
Fabulous. So we've got a series coming up on the joint by joint approach, and that's something, basically the idea of you take one bit at a time, and when they all put together, then everything works properly.
Yes,
and then you can do more with a better working body, and that's applicable for goals. Any goals that you want to do it's made of lots of different elements put together that you work. As you said, I see them as like a stepping stone. Sometimes you have to go sideways, you've got to go this way, you've got to go forward. Sometimes you have to go backwards and you go forward again. And
yes, perfect. Yeah,
it's a path, really. Well done. That's exactly what we'd like to do, so everybody gets healthier and moves better, and hopefully tune in later for the next series. And all the books, as usual, that we have mentioned today, any reference, we will put links underneath this video. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Take care.
Thanks again for watching. Please do like and subscribe. We also really value your feedback, so please leave your comments in the section below.